Good evening. Tonight we have Bob Russell from Glengate Company. He's going to be talking to us about swimming pool inspections. And we'd like to thank him for his time tonight. He's under the weather a little bit, and he's standing in for us at the last minute, which is really, really appreciated. So I'm going to be running the PowerPoint on my end. So you may hear him go next slide or next. If you have any questions, you can break in, but make sure that your microphone is muted, or you can type any questions into the chat box. So I'll hand it over to Bob.
All right. Well, thanks for the invitation, and hi everybody. How big's the audience? How many people would you say?
We have about 10 to 12 right now, I think. And
you're going to record this, or you're going to?
Yes.
Is that possible? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. So just a little brief thing about myself. I've been in the pool business full-time since 1982. I was a school teacher for a year, a coach, and but I was basically in recreational water and doing things having to do with recreational water since high school. And I didn't set out to be in the pool business, but here I am. And it turns out it's a wonderful thing. So right now I'm actually president of ConSpa, Connecticut Spa and Pool Association. And what you're going to get today, I actually show my own team periodically, things to look out for, and away we go. So the genesis of this was we joined one of the ASHI chapters and asked them if they were interested in doing pool inspections. They said yes. So that's how we started doing it. I remember the first time I did this, I didn't have any pictures, and it was suggested to me very strongly, you should have pictures. So I just snapped pictures all over the place. So this first slide is, this was my early toolage, and you're going to see the golf club. I've been known as the inspector with the golf club, and now when all my guys do inspections, they got golf clubs. Comes in really handy for tapping on tile, tapping on pool tile, coping, sounding out raised walls, and just reaching places that are tricky when you want to check the masonry, see if it's hollow or not. That tool on the left is what we put on and take off winter covers with. I measure the pool, so that's why the wheel's there. And inside my little bag there, I've got some of the tools that you all use. And listen, I realize that you guys do, you guys inspect masonry and you inspect homes and everything. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to tell you is going to be kind of Captain Obvious sort of stuff. But the swimming pools do have some unique things, and I hope I'm able to help you guys pick up some stuff that'll be good for you. Last thing, why would I train home inspectors to do a pool inspection? It's because not everybody hires a pool inspector, but if there's a pool there, it's nice to be able to walk around the pool with the potential buyer and speak intelligently about it. So one of the first things I tell my pool inspectors to do is take a lap, walk around. You'll catch more things out of your peripheral vision, but you just kind of notice things, and then you kind of go back to them in the inspection. I'm guessing you guys do the same thing. You probably walk around the house, and then you just go after the details. Next. One of the things I like to see is who built the pool, because a Glengate and a Scott pool, for instance, the plumbing is inside the pool shell. It hits the wall and it's inside the pool shell. It goes down to the floor, comes up to the return in the skimmer. So when you're winterizing that pool and blowing the lines out, it behaves differently than, say, a shoreline pool, where the plumbing typically goes around the outside and goes through the wall to the returns and the skimmers, and that'll behave a little differently. Next slide. Again, we're taking a walk around, just checking things out. I just take note. Oh, it looks like we got some efflorescence there. Why is that happening? And let's go to the next slide. If you're doing a pool inspection and the pool is closed, and that should answer the question, can you do a pool inspection when it's winterized? The answer is yes. Our cover letter for our inspection report basically states that it's visual only. We're not taking anything apart. Nobody's going scuba diving or pressure testing pipes. We're doing all visual, but there is value. And even people are wondering what the value is. By the time I'm done with what we've picked up, it's valuable, because the expensive stuff, if you're buying a house with a pool, the really expensive stuff is pretty obvious. Maybe not so obvious to people who aren't home inspectors, but it's pretty obvious to somebody who has been around pools a while. And that's just how I fold up the cover if I'm by myself, and it goes back on nice and easy. I don't have to, search for which anchor goes with which spring. Next. Question is, can you do an inspection if it's frozen, if it's below freezing outside? And the answer is yes, but it's a lot more work. I had to get on my belly and look under the coping, because when you tap coping that has frozen water underneath it, where it's broken bond, it's going to sound solid. You won't get the nice hollow sound that you'd get if it was warm. And of course, you can't see the floor nearly as well. So you just let the people know up front. This pool here is built on a slope. And this is, again, why you do the walk around. You just notice stuff. One of the first things I noticed about this pool, it was out of level, and it was leaning downhill towards on the slope. But the mystery was the deck matched the coping perfectly. It didn't look like the pool had settled after the deck was put in. It looked like the pool settled, and then they fixed the deck to hit the pool. And this is, I should mention this, that folks, when they know they're selling a house, and this is one of the Captain Obvious statements, when people are selling their house and they know inspections are coming, they make it look as pretty as possible, right? They paint, they cover stuff that they don't want you to call out. One of the things that I see is, well, you'll see them. Let's move on. But I want to just say one more thing. Yeah, you can just stay on that slide. This pool was out of level 5 inches end to end. This one here, it was built on unstable soils, and they really should have used piers there. But the main thing is, when you comment about a pool that's out of level, I always stay within the scope of my license, within the scope of my training and experience. And if they would like me to stick with and come back, I will. I have some buddies who are soil scientists or structural engineers, and they'll come and take a look, and I'll kind of meet with the real estate agent again, or the buyer, and talk about it, because they want to know, what's this going to cost me? That's the first thing in the back of their mind. What kind of a mess am I getting myself into? Next. Just to picture all those bricks, which are those 2 courses of bricks up to the water, you could have just lifted them up by hand, and they look perfect, don't they? But that's why you tap on stuff. But if you had stood on the edge of those bricks, you would have gone in the pool. So I just wanted to show that. Next. So this pool, this is one of my favorite shots. This one in the next slide, because I predicted, you could see where the coping. And just to define terms, the bluestone is the coping. Then you got your you got your setting bed, we call that, under the coping, and of course your tile. You see where. So I got some hollow sounds. I stuck my head underneath, and sure enough, it's broken bond from the setting bed. But none of them are loose, and that's pretty common. It's the way things fall apart in New England. Even a pool that's only a year old, maybe even 2 years old, the bluestone coping, because it gets so hot, you may get 20-30% of it sounding out hollow, but they're not moving, so it's okay. Next. Same exact pool, and I predicted the tile would fall off in 3 to 5 years, and this is 3 years later. All right, next. I'm proud of myself for that one. So this is just this next series of slides is just kind of how pools decay. Once water can wick underneath the bluestone coping, freeze thaw, freeze thaw, freeze thaw, the joint starts falling apart. Next slide. And it just gets worse and worse, and the setting bed starts to turn to sand. Next slide. And here's a shot of even where the ice is actually, you can actually see movement outward, and you see evidence of water passing through the joint. But that's how pools fall apart in the Northeast. The coping starts to break bond from the setting bed. If the deck isn't pitched away from the pool, or if the expansion joint is not proper, you start to get water coming underneath the coping. And next thing you know, it's under the tile. So usually when you see coping in this condition, the tile immediately below it also sounds out hollow. So then the question is, I understand this pool was built 20 years ago. It doesn't look like they've done a renovation since the pool was built. This is about what I'd expect to see. And this has a calming effect on the real estate agent, who is like, they see the pool inspector coming. After all, you guys have been through everything. And they see the pool inspector coming and they're like, oh crap, what's this guy going to say? And honestly, a lot of pool inspectors, it's nothing more than they're trying to find work, and they're calling out, and they're trying to sell a renovation. They don't get invited back to the party. I've learned to talk to real estate agents in such a way that you tell the absolute truth, but you use words like normal, above average, below average. This is normal. This is what happens to a pool in about 20 years, and it's maintenance. Every 8 to 15, 16 years, you're going to be lifting and laying some bluestone coping. And you can really help out yourself if you pitch the deck away from the pool and use a really good expansion joint. Okay, so I would say when you have a bluestone deck set on concrete, this is the number one problem I see in a pool inspection. So I tapped on all these coping around this pool, and they were like 95% hollow. And I'm like, that's not right. There's a nice caulk expansion joint between the deck and the pool, like there's supposed to be. There's supposed to be a gap. And so I took out my trusty awl, and you could use a nail or whatever, and I pushed it through the caulk expansion joint, and in about a 1/4 inch, I hit concrete. So it may have been dressed up pretty, but that's not a true gap. And the gap needs to really go. There needs to be a gap between the deck slab and the pool shell. They're two different structures. They move differently. There's always going to be stress at that joint, which is why you want about a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch gap. And then go to the next slide, please.
So Bob, you're saying actually when they pour that concrete pad, that should stop right before that coping, and then the other stuff is set differently on a separate concrete pad or sand or what?
So a lot of pool builders, when they build the pool, they're done. They're down the road, and then sometimes you have another contractor come in who does the deck. And this is actually a good picture. That top stone is a coping stone that was flipped over. All right, so what you're looking at is the setting bed for the coping now exposed, and that's the caulk joint right behind it. You see, you go down a 1/4 inch in some spots and you're hitting cement, and all that coping was hollow. When the sun hits bluestone deck, it goes sideways and it expands, and it'll shear the bluestone coping right off the pool shell. So that's what was happening here. So that's why it's good to have an awl. And I'll go around the entire pool, especially where I get hollows. I'll go around the whole pool and I'll push it through the caulk joint. And try the next slide, please. Oh, and you'll see another slide later where if you put your awl through in one area of the caulk joint, it'll go down 1.5 inches or 2 inches, the width of the coping. But if you keep pushing it in, a few feet away from it, it's like you go down a 1/4 inch and you're hitting cement. And you'll see an example of that in a minute. What you're looking at here, go back.
Oh, sorry.
What you're looking at here is a stone deck set on concrete, and there's no expansion joint. They filled the joint between the coping and the deck with cement. So look what happened. To relieve the stress, look at that crack going down the whole length of the side of the pool. And that's the stress of the deck buckling up against the bluestone coping. If the coping doesn't give, it's going to give somewhere. And this crack went all the way down the length of the pool. It's not as visible on the left. You can see it though. You can see the crack going down the pool. Okay, next. Thank you. Okay, so on the left side of this picture where it says tile setting bed, they put the tile on and then they plaster finish the pool. So the tile setting bed is just where they, below the tile, they have a little cement. So clearly water was getting behind the tile, and through freeze thaw cycles, it just jacks the tile off the pool. Now this looks like the pool wall is cracked, and the client was very happy to hear it's not as bad as it looks. That's just the tile coming off, and it's taking some of its setting bed with it. If you look in the middle of the picture, you'll see that horizontal line under the coping. That's granite coping there. That's defining the top of the pool shell, thank you, from the coping setting bed. A lot of pool builders don't know what the final grade of the deck's going to be. So when they put the coping on, sometimes they leave a little extra room. That's a pretty thick setting bed. But this pool lasted 35, 40 years before it started doing this. So it was a well-built pool. It happens. It's the Northeast. I only had this picture to remind folks why it's a great idea to have the golf club, because I tap on everything. And in order to tap on those stones on the common wall of the spa, I had to walk out there, but I would have killed myself because those stones were really loose. So I just reached out and tapped on them. Next slide. Another picture of a bluestone drip edge on a spa pool combination, and water is pouring underneath the bluestone. Next slide. By the way, that can be fixed with some epoxy putty on the spa side underneath temporarily. It'll last 3 years. It'll just stop the water going through. And a lot of times I tell the client, do I need to, they'll ask me, do I need to do it now? And I says, no, we'll stop the water going underneath. We'll use a nice gray epoxy putty. This stuff hardens up underwater. It's great stuff. But once that coping gets, once that bluestone gets loose enough to where if somebody walked on it, it'll flip in. That's when you should absolutely by that point do something about it. Tile. Next slide. And that lovely tile, does that just scream 1980? So here's a picture of, again, this is kind of repeat, but that's the setting bed of the concrete precast coping. And water was starting to come through because there's a breach. The water's able to come through and get behind the tile, and you get to see it freezes and it pushes the tile off. It may take 3 or 4 winters of freeze thaw cycles, but that's what you'll see. Next. Here is a customer. Here is a seller who wanted to put some new tile on the pool, but they didn't want to spend a lot of money. So they just put the new tile on top of the old tile. So now the tile is sticking out further than the coping, and it's pretty obvious. And that's a nice new cement job you can see right below my toe. And it's just evidence. I mean, you'll go to some of these pools and you'll see the imprint of the garden hose in the grass leading up to the pool. And right away, and it's not there, and it's wound up. It's nice, neat. So right away, I'm suspicious this pool's losing water, and I start hunting, for the normal water loss spots. Next, I'm going to show you a couple of those in a minute. Just so I'd show this picture, it's a pool in Ridgefield. We had to keep this pool running year round because they had some very expensive imported Italian mosaic tile, and it went down 24 inches. And we couldn't take that much water out of the pool without risk of problems with the beam. I just thought I'd show that in there. We had to put boilers in. You cannot heat a pool in January to 39 degrees using a conventional pool heater. You need a boiler. So we put in 2 boilers. Money wasn't a big object for these folks. Next. When you're checking the tile, there's some tile that's really hard to get to, if not impossible, unless you're wearing waders, which I don't. So what I'll do is I'll tap on all the tile I can get to on the deck side, and then I will use my camera with, you pinch your camera to magnify, or binoculars to look at the other side, and let the client know all the tile I tapped on, 20% are hollow. That's normal. I looked across, there's none missing. I would surmise that it's about the same. However, I did not tap on it. I just tell the client what we did, and they look at it and they're like, oh yeah, I ain't going out there. So there's a lot of pools that are very natural and they got place boulders. You might not want to mention this, but you can hint it. You know, if the buyer has little children, does this look like a kid's pool to you? Yeah. So you just kind of look at it, and they're going to figure that out. You don't have to tell them that. But next one, I want you to see the next slide. Here's some place stones where they didn't build a haunch. We'll talk about that in a second. But you could see where that stone right there is rocking back and forth. It was overhanging the back of the pool beam, so the freeze thaw was underneath that piece hanging over and lifting it up and dropping it during the winter. Next picture is a really bad, sorry, but that's my artistic work. So on the far right, that side view of a pool beam, that's a haunch. So the haunch should totally cover extra wide coping or rocks that you're placing. You've got to build a haunch, and it's steel reinforced. The one on the far left is 12-inch coping, but the back of the coping that's up against the grass is even with that edge, the outside edge of the pool shell, and then you got the overhang. What is done in the middle was what they did with that rock, and that's wrong because the ground forces lift and drop, and you're going to have a problem. Next. It's nice, it's nice to be able to tell a client not just that something failed, but it's good to be able to offer reasons why it failed. They like the education. The first question I ask going into a pool inspection is, one, have you ever owned a pool before? And if the answer is no, I say to them, would you mind if I'll ask some questions you should be asking? By all means. And I said, and do you mind if I educate a little bit what it's like to own a pool? Please, thank you. But I ask permission, and I'm able to get into way more detail and even tell them what they can expect to spend for a year for a swimming pool, so they're not stunned, when they end up closing on the house and then hiring us. I want to make sure they're getting what they need. So this pool, I don't commit to the C word, to the word crack, although it sure looks like a crack to me. But I'll say it appears to be a crack, and so I start asking questions. And if the homeowner is willing to ask, there's a lot of hostile pool inspections. Just saying, they don't want to talk to you. They're gone. But I want to know, does this pool hold water? I want to see evidence. If it's got an automatic pool fill, you've seen them in the deck, with the toilet float to maintain the water level. If you hear the thing running when you get there, and every time you walk by it, it's running. It's just a piece of information. If you see that they had a hose out in the grass and they put it away, it's just a piece of information. The other thing I look for is recent water lines. Next slide. We'll get to the water lines in a second. So there's enough evidence here for me to say this crack goes into the pool structure. You've got iron from the rebar inside the pool shell. You've got a pattern. And you've got epoxy putty. So somebody dye tested that crack and believed it was leaking. It sucked dye. By the way, that's how we look for leaks when we go scuba diving or from the deck as far as we can reach. We squirt a little dye. Sometimes the reagents in the test kit, if you don't have them, but they actually make these really nice dyes. One's a fluorescent color, green, and one's a dark black. And when you squirt a little dye across a crack like that underwater, the dye just goes right in the crack, and it shows you that it's sucking, it's leaking. Next. That's just for fun. But the next slide, go to the next slide. I want you to see that, but I want you to see this. Click one more time. I want you to watch this video. All right, well, that's pretty choppy. Oh, there it goes. So this is them shooting a pool, and watch the guy with the shovel, and then we can click out of this, but I want you to see the guy with the shovel. He's scooping up what they call rebound and throwing it out of the pool. And these shotcrete guys, it's either shotcrete or gunite, pick one. Nobody knows the difference. I mean, I do, but who cares? Do you guys want to know the difference? Shotcrete comes through the hose wet.
Yeah.
And gunite's mixed at the nozzle. You probably knew that, but gunite is preferred for really high tack. Like if you're doing a tunnel and you're doing a ceiling you're shooting concrete on the ceiling, you want it to and stick. So they use gunite for stuff they want to stick. But the rebound the guy was throwing out, if you go back a couple slides, one more. Yeah. So yeah, you can go back to the nice artwork somebody did on a step. No, keep going forward. Sorry.
Oh, back.
Yeah, the white crack,
Hold on.
the crack repair with the white.
Oh,
Yeah, keep going.
we go forward or
Yeah, right there. So that
right here?
when we see shattering like that on a step or a bench, it's almost always rebound. And we know that because we do PSI tests. We'll do a core sample and a PSI test on it. And it's supposed to be 3,000 to 5,000 PSI, and it's like 900, 1,200. And right away, what we know is when they were shooting the pool, the rebound that was bouncing back has very little cement in it. The cement sticks to the surface they're shooting against, and the aggregate bounces back. It looks like cement, it'll pack like cement, but it's very poor quality cement. And they'll just shovel it on the steps and build the steps with it or a bench with it. And that's why you see a lot of benches and steps cracked, because they shoveled the rebound into those areas instead of throwing it out of the pool. All right, next. So we were told by these guys that Glengate's the only company they know that throws that stuff out of the pool. I'm just saying. We put our money where our mouth is. Here's another expansion joint that you can see is very uneven. So if you stuck your awl in that deep area, you may say, oh, it's an adequate expansion joint. But you go 2 or 3 inches to the right or left, and you're hitting cement. So I just wanted you to see that. That's just a good example when we flip the bluestone over what we see when it's all hollow. Can you go back to that one slide? The one on the left, just another example. That's a skimmer mouth to the right. And that's just, you can imagine this, by the way, that skimmer mouth where the pool meets the plastic is probably the #1 source of water loss in every pool in Connecticut. Probably 80% of the leaks, just put a bead of epoxy around the skimmer mouth and it stops. It's just because that's what's behind the tile. They just didn't, they weren't real thorough when they were gunniting. Okay, next. I'm going to pause here. Any questions? Am I going at a good pace?
Good.
Just
Yeah, you're going great.
Good.
No.
All right, we're almost halfway. Okay. Well, if there's ever a good reason, if there's ever a good picture to show why the golf club is handy, this is it. So you walk along the top of that wall and you can tap on all those stones. We don't want any stones falling off on a swimmer. We've redone those stones twice since this pool was built in 1986. I am feeling old when I say stuff like that, but we renovated this pool, and you know, especially by the waterfall with water running, some moisture gets behind the stones. You know, listen, cement, after water runs over it for a year or 2 or 3, you get some etching, some erosion in the cement, and you get moisture behind the stone. It starts to freeze thaw. Next thing you know, the stone is hollow, and then it's loose. Next. This is, that's just not a good picture, but that's a picture of fractured plaster. That's probably ice that did that. Next. You're going to love these pictures. So when you're walking around the pool and you see these little white tails, next picture. There they are. So what those are is, this is probably a replaster that failed to adhere. So every one of those tails is a bubble that didn't stick. And if you take the water out of the pool, it actually rises out like a bubble. The water pressure actually keeps it flat against the wall. But every one of these tails is a crack in the crown of a bubble. And you can see where somebody stepped on one in the bottom. So that's what that is. That's failure to adhere. Now you got a golf club in your hand and you can reach some of those tails. Don't hit them hard. Just saying. Next. All right. So here is an example of a little plaster failure, that little round deal down there. You know what? That may be the main drain cover. I've been calling that a plaster failure for years. That's the main drain cover. Okay. Or floor suction outlet. All those streaks are chemical burn, and they're permanent. This is people throwing chlorine in the pool or throwing in pH minus granular, and it doesn't dissolve. It hits the floor. And chemical stains look like a comet. They got a head and trail towards the deep end. Next slide. This is those round circles. That is chemical tablet, chemical burn, probably because the winter floaters designed to keep the pool clear, when they pulled the cover on, when they closed the pool, nobody noticed that they hooked and dragged the floaters up onto the bench. And that's what it looks like in the spring, and it's permanent. Can't get that out. Goes all the way through to the cement. All right. You guys with the really good eyes, you see what that bench is doing at the top? Right on the riser, just toward the top. Look at that. I'd never seen that before. I took a picture. I still can't tell you exactly what happened there. It almost looks like they patched it. Also, that you see that grate on the floor? That's illegal. That has been illegal for a long time. I think 2012 they required the new generation. A couple years after that boy drowned in Greenwich. All right, next slide. You're going to hear a lot about those. Thought I'd throw this in. By the way, this is the first vanishing edge pool done probably in America. We did this in like 86, 87 for a company called Aquasud. The original finished color was sand from the French Riviera. That's where the guy was from, and he just wanted a little slice of home. But it's basically a concrete pool with, you guys ever see chopping with fiberglass with the gun? They'll shoot it and chop it, and then they gel coat the top of it. It's like they're making a big kayak. But we've had to resurface that twice. But my main point on this picture is that beach entries should be non-skid. So if you're doing a pool inspection and just want to be a nice guy, give good advice, run your hand over that beach. And if it's slick, let them know, it'd be a good idea to lower the water level, dry it out real good, and put some non-skid surface on here so you don't kill nobody. Next slide. There it is. We were talking about that a couple of slides ago. Next. Here's another one, this next slide. So this is interesting. On the far left, we see epoxy. So this is my first time seeing this pool. On the far left, we got epoxy putty. Somebody thinks the skimmer's leaking. You got iron stains. A lot of water from the well coming in the pool. They're actually pulling iron. And you got a recent watermark on the far right. You see that? So they just filled it up and it just dropped. They filled it up for the inspection and it dropped probably in 3 hours. Next slide is actually inside the skimmer. I'll show you the leak. There it is. The skimmer was cracked. It wasn't like a major thing. And just a little epoxy putty and it was fine. This was actually the pool that was actually going down the hill that we looked at in the beginning. And next slide is actually underneath the deck, and water was just pouring down the side of the skimmer box. So it was pretty easy to fix that. Next slide. Other sources of water loss, because one of the value-added things for an inspection on a pool is tell people how a pool can be made energy efficient or more energy efficient. How you can conserve water. You can maybe disabuse them of of some of the nonsense out there that chlorine causes cancer or stuff like that. Listen, I was on a swim team 4 years. My sinuses are ruined because of those 4 years. But well-balanced, sanitized water does not burn your eyes and ears. That's a chemistry problem. That's an ammonia chlorine compound. And you got to burn that ammonia off and yield free chlorine. It's odorless and it's a powerful sanitizer. You do not want to be in a pool without chlorine. Not a good plan. And even though they have chlorine-free, quote, chlorine-free pools, they're still using copper and silver. Copper to kill and check algae, silver to check and kill bacteria. That pool will go cloudy in a week if you don't throw a little chlorine in it. So it's like, stop it. And plus you get the copper stains if it gets like 2 parts per million out, you got blonde people getting green hair, and that's.
So
By the way,
those saltwater pools, all salt, they have chlorine in them, or they
yes,
should.
yes, you're just making your own out of sodium chloride, which is how they've been making bleach for a century. They just make a brine and they whack it with some electricity, and it yields chlorine gas and sodium. Yes, sir. Or soda ash. So when you're talking about, you got a lot of tree huggers out there and people that want to know if they can, how expensive is it to run the pool? So this particular pool belonged to the Tisch family. Don't mention I mentioned a name. And they had a daughter who had a type of arthritis. What's the one that starts with rheumatoid arthritis? And so this pool, with a constant wind off the sound, it's almost always a 3 or 5 mile an hour breeze over this pool, but they had to keep it at 86 degrees. So the evaporation rate on this pool wasn't normal. So that's my main point. When people ask me how much water is normal to evaporate, I say 1/4 inch a day under normal average conditions. That's average temperature, average wind. This is not a normal average area. So we would heat up the water to 86 degrees for the daughter, and the breeze. This pool would lose 1/2 inch to 1 inch a day, even on a very windy day. Next. Just another water loss. If you ever see this is what's known as a hidden spring, and it's nothing more than a return line that comes straight up out of that bench and bounces off the bottom of the rock and looks like something's gushing into the pool. It's kind of a poor man's water feature. The problem is that rock that it's bouncing on the bottom of that rock is moving, and the joint opened up. So this pool would lose 1 foot of water in 2 hours when it was running. And you're going to get wet fixing this one, but if you get down and look underneath that rock with a flashlight, you'll see the joints open and the water is hitting the bottom of the rock and just tracing out of the pool. It kind of, by surface tension, it just kind of runs out of the back underneath. So we would just load it up with duck seal or something that's flexible. Maybe put a little epoxy putty in there. And then we'll put a fitting on that so it bounces toward the pool, so you get inertia. This is just a good example of some leaks. You may not get into this conversation, but that, you see the black poly on the left with the hose clamps, that's like late 70s, early 80s. The middle picture, I'm sorry, the picture on the right, that's a missing glue joint. Lasts 25 years when they friction fit pipe into a joint, but after the pump turns on and off 1,000 times, that bump, it one day just pops out. And I see that a lot. That flex pipe in the background. Next slide. Yeah, this one. Nope. Next slide. That's your.
Next slide.
So that is using the wrong glue on flexible PVC pipe. They use the gray glue, which is a slow set, and PVC skins over, and it's actually a weld. They call it's not really a glue. It's a big college word. I can't think. So. But gray glue skins over, and the glue under the skin is still eating into the pipe. And rigid PVC can handle that. You're still supposed to wipe your glue beads when you put a fitting together, but they have flexible glue. Next. This is what pipe looks like underneath a pool skimmer that was used as a chlorinator and had a mechanical time clock that they had off for 12 hours. So that's what chlorine does. Chlorine, really strong chlorine soup. That's what it does to flexible PVC over about 20 years. Next. This slide just shows you that some PVC pipe is not very deep. It really should be down 18, 20 inches, but it doesn't. The landscape doesn't always allow that. Next. So these are things you kind of comment on as a favor. I don't know if I'd write it down, but that dresser coupling coming off that old steel valve, you're about 8 to 9 feet below water level here, and it's about 100,000 gallon pool with a live floor outlet. So you used to be able to open that valve and drain the pool empty, and they turned it into a part of the filter system, which is good. But a dresser coupling, I don't know about you, but I don't trust that sucker. So one of the first things we did when we renovated that pool was we updated all the plumbing, and those valves with the plastic handles, they're so cheap. They don't, just use a good valve. Use a good valve when you have that much head sitting on the plumbing. You want good stuff down there. Next. Crappy plumbing. Next. Crappy plumbing. You want to see some nice plumbing? Next picture. There it is. That's a signed by Shelby himself. All right, next picture. I'll keep going. This picture and the next one, just to take a quick gander at that and look at the next one. The roof over this equipment is nailed shut, and that's a 60 square foot DE filter that needs the filter elements lifted out and cleaned manually at least once a year. You can't do that in this situation. Do you mention that to the buyer? I did. And I offered a solution with the problem. I said, it wouldn't take too much to run that plumbing outside of the structure and put the filter next to the heater, which is also outside the structure. And they would have been like, oh, thank you. How much does that cost? You know, they're always going to ask. All right, next.
Bob, is that PVC and electrical conduit or Schedule 80? And is that okay to mix?
That's Schedule 40, and somebody ran out of Schedule 40 fittings and used Schedule 80. That's probably all that is. See a lot of that out there. See that nice brand new shiny motor? They probably replace that. They probably replace that thing every 2 years because of it's always wet down there. All right, next. And okay. There's a salt cell there. Next. Some of our pools are very complex. That unit on the right is obviously a heat exchanger, but in this particular case, it was a chiller because some company, I'm not going to mention their names, they built the overflow for the spa, and they had an auto cover. They built it too low, so the pool water was constantly mixing with the spa. So the spa they're trying to keep the spa 100 degrees, and the pool's going up to 100 degrees. So they had a chiller. Talk about a big carbon footprint. This one had it. Next, we ended up solving the problem. Everything now is variable speed. In fact, the electric code that came in 2009-10 pretty much said it. But I will tell you a funny story. The guy that was in Hartford, Hurlbert, he was in charge of the pool, the SP2 license and SP1 license, and the CEUs that we have to get for our license. And we were writing test questions for pool builders test to get a CPB, certified pool builder. And we got to the end, and he's like, are there any other subject we should cover? And I said, well, what about the electric code? And he looked at me, this guy from Hartford, he looked at me and said, what electric code? I said, there's an electric code that says if we take a single speed pump out, the main pump, a single speed motor out, we have to replace it with a variable speed or something below 1 horsepower, like a 3/4 or a 2-speed pump. He's Googling, he's looking at it. He's looking on his own website. He's like, son of a bitch, we got a electric code in Connecticut. So I think the reason it's not really being reinforced, I don't want to get into all this. We'll keep going, but we'll talk about that later. But they're starting to keep score how much juice every residence is using, and they're coming up with a ratio. Anybody know that guy? It's Dave Estrie, works for me, does pool inspections. But this is just a complex pool. Next, remember the first Mission Impossible? Remember he was like suspended from the ceiling and hanging above the floor, and a little drop of sweat. So that previous picture, if a drop of water hits the floor of that filter room, they got an amelioration system, $1 million amelioration. It'll shut all the valves and set off an alarm. I think it's this is folks who have those little fountains on the side of the pool. Really good to have walkie-talkies when you're balancing all those, so they're all even. Next.
So don't sweat when you're working on that. And
yep. So that's the amelioration system I was just telling you about. That hole in the left. Those are automated valves. There's very sensitive water sensors on the floor of that room. The guy's got a lot of artwork in the house, so it's not cheap. I should mention also, if you're in a basement with that much stuff going on, phone systems, copper pipes, if you see green on the copper, you got chlorine gas in the room probably, and you shouldn't have a chlorinator in the room. There's a good reason to go with salt for that person, unless they have accessible plumbing outside so you can do the chlorine outside. All right, I love these valves just because you can fix them. Next slide. So when you have a manifold like that and the middle valve actuator gasket fails, you could just take it apart and replace it, and instead of cutting out the whole thing because it's fitting the fitting. Next. That's an automatic pool fill. Some people crazily put them 20, 30 feet away from the pool and just have a pipe and figure that the level will seek its right level. But the footing around the autofill is almost always not big enough, so it sinks, and then they abandon it and use a hose. This is just a message to self. It took me an hour to find the feed for the pool fill. It was hidden in an irrigation box and it was unlabeled, but we figured it out. Next. Here's an automatic pool fill on the right coming off a hose bib. It's illegal. That's the irrigation system coming through the foundation on the left with the proper backflow preventer. An automatic pool fill is best to come off the irrigation or have a dedicated backflow preventer. By code, you just have to have a backflow preventer. Next. I'm speeding up just because I want to get stuff in.
That's fine.
Keep going. That's just a type of deck, not a type. Next. So here's a deck here's a deck in stone dust or a flexible base with cement joints. And because it was had really good water flow away from, somebody help me out here. What's the big college word? Drainage around the pool. I knew it was a big word. So because this pool drains really well and you don't have water sitting under the deck freeze thaw, that works. But forget it. If you don't put gravel down or you don't have good drainage, just the ground forces, those cement joints will break every winter. Next. This concrete deck with stamped concrete is breaking up because it was undermined. The water's coming off that slope to your left, and it was just undermining the deck. Next. Well, that's kind of silly, but they kept yelling at us because the brick kept coming loose, and we're trying to cement it to copper. Next. This could be a spa that has a leaking pipe, or it could just be settling because the pool's new. You'll see this periodically with a new pool. Next. And the lawnmowers hit the stuff in the grass. Next. The only point I want to make on this is the ladder anchors need to be in a footing, and the footing needs a bronze footing is probably best, but there are plastic ones now. But it needs to be in a footing, and it needs to be grounded and bonded to the steel in the pool shell. So you got to lift up about 5-6 stones there. Dig into the pool shell until you find some steel, bug onto it, and then the copper wire to the bronze anchor. So, you know, your $500-600 stainless steel, marine grade stainless steel ladder, suddenly it's a $3,500 job or even more, because you got to put a footing in and you got to ground it. Next. Just stuff that you might see around the pool. That's just fresh water line. They come up and go back down. Next. Those are junction boxes for the pool lights. You probably knew that. Next. I often ask the real estate agent or the owner if they'll open the cover for me. Things just have a way. You guys know this. When you're doing an inspection, you turn stuff on and off, you run things, and all of a sudden something breaks. Well, it wasn't like that before you were here, you know. So I've just kind of, I know you guys totally identify with that, but I just learned to you just learn to do stuff. So this is the cover, the automatic cover lid for the vault that's under the deck. And these designers and architects, they love big, beefy stones. But the people that service that cover that need to lift those stones, their insurance companies say, you can't have your guys lifting anything more than 60 pounds or we're not going to insure you. And it's true. So we have to so we have a love-hate relationship with these kind of covers. We have our masons go out with the straps and they'll carefully lift the stones, not break them. And then go to the next one. I want you to see what's underneath. Oh, so here's somebody that cemented it in, something that needs to be serviced and cleaned out annually. Next. So that's what it looks like underneath those stones. We use a caulk, I call it denture cream, to kind of nest the stones so they don't rock or click. And then they use little shims. If the stone is a little uneven and it's rocking, they'll put shims in there. Next. And that's what it looks like without the equipment in there. And there's always good drainage in there. But that's when you see these people roll up the covers and there's like all these leaves disappearing in the hole, that's where they go. And they clog the drain and it needs to be cleaned out annually. Next. This is they don't use this much anymore. It's more direct drive now, but this is the hydraulic automatic cover system. Notice they were very thoughtful and put it right in front of the heater that we have to pull the tray on every year. Next. So some stuff you'll see out there will leave you shaking your head like, holy crap, what is all this stuff? And what I teach my guys to do is listen. It works, it doesn't work, right, guys? You turn the switch on, it works, it does what it's supposed to do. Turn the switch off, it shuts off. All this other stuff that's been abandoned, don't worry about it. Don't pay it no mind. Just and all of a sudden the pool inspection is a lot easier. Yeah, 48 pipes coming out of the ground, and they all. Can you imagine the trench? Can you imagine troubleshooting a leak somewhere in the system? I just took a picture just to amaze you. The guy didn't like my price for service because I charged him for opening, closing, and service. There's your variable speed pump. Next. All right, so this is a safety vacuum release system. That's what SVRS stands for. And some people just use VRS, vacuum release system. This is an electric one. There'll be a hose connected right in front of the pump. And if the pump that's running senses it's deadheaded or a spike in vacuum, it pulls on the hose and the system will shut the pump off. Next one. This type is a mechanical SVRS. The top underneath the gauge on the right is a vent. So if there's a spike in vacuum, it'll pull something open that has to be reset manually, and it'll let air in. And so whatever's stuck in the pool on the other end that sealed it is not stuck anymore. Next. Same principle. Those screw right into the pump housing. Those are also mechanical SVRS models. Those are $1,000 a piece, those things. I know. That's a diatomaceous earth, and that silver tank to the left is a separation tank. Nobody uses them. We hate them with a passion because they don't work. That filter got dirty at 90 gallons a minute. So when you clean it, you got to throw 90 gallons a minute the opposite way, knock the dirty DE off, send it through that bag filter, that silver tank there. And in theory, the water goes back to the pool and you got a nice efficient, you're conserving water. Problem is dirty DE clogs that bag filter within 10 seconds. And you went from 90 gallons a minute really fast down to about 10. And so it doesn't work. So what a lot of the guys will do, if they're in the woods, they'll take the lid off and just let it, overflow. Or you see that black valve just to the left of the multi-port right there. That's it. Nope. Just to the left of the right. So that little white plug in the middle, that's what we call a separation tank bypass. We just screw in a hose adapter, put our hose on and run it out to the woods because you want to get a good clean. That's what's inside. Next slide. That's what it looks like. Multi-port. Next slide. That's a cartridge filter. I love the one on the right. They've gotten really good. It actually filters. I didn't like cartridge filters for years, but these filter 3 to 5 microns, maybe 5 to 10 microns. The DE is more 3 to 5, but it's a lot dirtier and a lot more work. This is the main filter we sell now because it's both water efficient, water conserving, and you have to take it apart. It's a 45-minute project to clean those elements. Next. See if you get in something interesting. The paint on these boxy heaters is designed, engineered to turn color if there's a breach in the firebox. So if that spot right there gets real hot, it'll change color, cook the paint off, and then it'll rust. Next. So this has been doing that for a while. Some of these old boxy heaters, that's how you tell what year it was manufactured. The first 2 digits in the serial number. Next. That is about a 14-year-old heater. What it looks like when it condensates, especially when you're heating up a pool from like 49 to 89, you know, in a week, it condensates the cold water going through the pipes that have a fire underneath them. And that condensate hits the burners, gives you yellow flame, which gives you partially unburnt fuel, which creates acid rain, which rots out your heaters. So one of the things that beats up the heaters is the early startup. We tell folks once you get, you know, if you want to save your heater, once you get up to temperature or the lowest you ever want it to get, which is like 78 degrees, you know, if you got a party tomorrow, throw it on, it'll be up to 82, you know, in 6 hours under average. Next. That's how you check the burners. Don't ever stick your face down there and wonder why it's not firing. There's a spider in Connecticut that will clog some of those orifices. And if the first 3 or 4 orifices are clogged, you can dump quite a bit of gas in there before it hits the ignition source. That's what we call a hard start. What you don't want to get is to get woofed. And that's the sound that the fireball makes when it comes out and wraps around your head. And I know people that have had singed eyebrows. You're looking at one. You only do it once. And I did it probably 30 years ago. I was all jacked up on caffeine, and it was Memorial Day weekend. And I had why isn't this heater lighting? And I taught people never do that, and I did it. So use a mirror. These are very efficient heaters. And so the stainless steel, and you'll notice the drip system underneath. Keep going. Just venting. This is important. So decks are considered living space. So we had to vent this particular heater out the side of the louvers, and it has a blower in it, so it blows the air out. You can't have a passive draft heater under a deck. Next. If you go to heater school, these are handy. You can download these from the internet. Clearances. That's a nifty thing to be able to point out to a buyer that your boxy heater is 2 foot away from a window. Oh, we never opened the window. Yeah, but it's not code, which makes me wonder if this pool has a C of O. You know, you could start, by the way, the C of O conversation, be real careful with that one. You guys probably know that can be a can of worms, or they can look at you like, thank you. I am going to check that out next. But usually it's both. Next. These are just things that you guys would be interested in, you know, to look for that things are not code or things are dangerous. Next, where do you see this next one? This was the former lieutenant governor of New York. Go back one slide. See the venting? It's got the backdraft. Go forward again. Does that look altered to you? And that wood was dry as tinder. Next. Well, I've never had a problem, he said. And I'm like, well, you've got 1,000-gallon propane tank hooked up to that sucker. That thing's going to burn a while. All right. Just a clear picture of a heater with a bypass. It's an oil heater. You don't see many of those around anymore, if any. Next. That's an electric heater, often associated with smaller bodies of water like spas. Next. That one in the middle, you turn it on, the street lights dim. Remember street lights? You guys have street lights where you are? This is just to remind me that the gauges on those 2 tanks, which are connected, both said one's empty and one's full. Next. I just want to mention that sometimes the gauges don't work. And that's how mice get in the nemesis of pool heaters. So we close those up. That is a heat pump, and it's paired with a pool heater. The heat pump will maintain a nice base temperature, and this pool actually had a spa. So the gas heater is to heat the spa from 86 degrees up to 104 relatively quickly. By the way, those heat pumps will condensate. They've got a place for 3/4 inch pipe where you can kind of run it where you want to run it. Otherwise, the top of that slab will be wet and have algae pretty early in the summer. Next. Those are just heat exchangers, just another way to heat the pool using an existing domestic boiler with a dedicated zone. It takes a lot of energy to heat water, 20 times more energy to heat water than air. So when you see 400,000 BTU pool heaters, that's because it takes like 4.25 gallons an hour with that thing running on propane. Similar cost for natural. So sometimes people will use a domestic boiler, but I still want to meet the oil guys, and I still want to say, are there enough BTUs here on a chilly fall when they're heating the house, heating the domestic hot water, and heating the pool at the same time? No, we need to upgrade the filter. All right, up it, and then you have a conversation with the client. Next. This is all remote control stuff. Keep going. It's 8 o'clock. Should I keep?
We can go like 5 more minutes.
All right.
Yeah. Do you want to just cruise through some of these photos?
Yeah, we'll cruise. Next slide. I just want to show you guys. You control. This is what this unit is in the power center. This is what's at the filter slab. When you see how the auto is lit on the left, when you hit that blue button, it goes into service. You can now turn every pump on that slab on and off. And you can turn the heater on and off and the lights on and off from this control. Just remember to put it back in auto. Next. That, if you're going to do an inspection, it works, it doesn't work. It's nice to be able to flip through it. Here's your spa side remote control. I hit all the buttons. Next. There's just some of the stuff you can get online. If you want to if you're going to start doing pool inspections, I'd have some of those. They have really good detailed drawings. Installation drawings, so you can call out and show the client or the potential buyer they didn't follow the manufacturer's installation requirements. This is just a no-brainer. I mean, you guys see this all the time. What's interesting, though, is although there was wet in the electronics, you could blame the gasket, but it was really the irrigation head that was popping up 4 feet away and hitting this thing sideways that caused the problem. And I know that because it hit me in the back and surprised me. Next. Sometimes rodents or insects get in and they'll short things out. Next. They actually had a fire in their house. That is you've seen these. You know what that is, right? That's for lightning storms.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So this will take a spike in electricity coming into the high voltage side. They make smaller things, and they're hardening up some of the motherboards that are outside exposed to static. But it used to be wild, man. We'd get the neighbor would get hit, and it would pop 3 or 4 chips. We used to replace chips in these things in the old days. Now everything's modular. Next. I'll tell stories. Next. A lot of smart homes are incorporating the pool stuff in it. There's just different sanitizer things. That's ozone on the right. You should know this. So they're selling the ingredient in this chlorine. If anybody's writing stuff down, this may save somebody's life someday. The ingredients in these chlorinating tablets is calcium hypochlorite. HTH is calcium hypochlorite. You may be familiar, and it's pressed into a tablet, and it should never be confused nor mixed with the standard trichlor tablets. So trichlor is the first letters of trichlor S-triazonotrione, but it's a slow dissolved tablet that goes into the dispensers that you see on most pools. Now, if Joe homeowner goes to Lowe's Lumber where they're selling this and sees, I need tablets for my pool, and grabs that and mixes it in his feeder with the trichlor, he will have a very strong reaction, especially if he shuts the pump off. I've seen these things 4 times their size before they explode. It's violent. So Cal Hypo, I wrote a letter to Olin about this. I said, it's really not a good idea. Imagine having a gas station with 2 different types of gas at the same pump. And if you pick the wrong one, your car could blow up. That's just not a good plan. Next. Salt chlorine generator, 3,400 parts per million, about 1/10 the salinity of seawater. About 400 to 600 pounds average size pool every spring because of dilution over the winter. We get about 2.5 to 3.5 feet of new water in swimming pools from closing to opening around these parts. Just commercial ozone next. Ozone again next. Let me see if there's anything else. That big blue tank there, that is a contact chamber for an ozone system, a commercial size ozone system. So if you ever see these black things, and sometimes you get like a pressure cooker sound going off at the top, and you may smell the ozone. It smells like a copy machine scent, after a thunderstorm. It's kind of a sweet smell. But that's a contact chamber. Next. I don't even want to get into that. Next. That's incorrect. All that stuff there. This thing on the left is automation. It automatically senses the pH of the water. That little probe there's two probes sticking up on the top. And there's a little acid tank there that'll add acid. And on the other side, it tests for sanitizer level. And if it exceeds the level that you want in the pool, it turns it off. Or if it dumps below where you want it, it turns it on. All right. So automation's pretty nifty. Next. A couple of cleaners. Next. Let's see if there's anything else. Pits. Next. This pit had jet pumps in it. Next. That's a dewatering pit. You shouldn't bury them. Next. Just see if there's anything else you'd want to know. Those white pipes with the green lids, those are shut-off valves. This particular pool company, they winterize their systems by blowing air through those lines and then locking it in with a good quality valve. I'd comment whether I like those or not, but I'm not gonna. I'll just say that we don't do it. Next. Next. This was actually fun. Oh, you need to see this. If this is the only one you see today, this is a 400,000.
Okay.
That's a 400,000 BTU pool heater in a room below the living room. And on the right, you can see the door jamb, and left, there's a door, and they could close this room. That the oxygen in that room is burned up in probably 15 minutes, and it's putting out carbon monoxide.
So not enough combustion air. Yeah.
Exactly. Now the real estate agent says the homeowner told me to tell you we keep the door open during the pool season. But I'll just say Vitas Gerulaitis, the famous tennis star, who died from a pool heater that was in a room and somebody shut the door. Vitas Gerulaitis, he was making a big comeback. Next. Let me just see if there's anything else exciting. Yeah, it's exciting. Next. I did not sell a service agreement. Tell me, does that look safe to you on the left? It's a 400,000 BTU heater. What do you think?
Wood. Yeah.
What do you think the humidity of that wood is?
Never mind the roof. It's above.
Oh, see, here's the next one. This is right above the filter. Nails. So if you don't burn the place down, you're going to stab your pool guy in the head with your nails. Next. Obviously, we don't want to do that. All those chemicals, it says on the side, store in a cool, dry place. Next. Cool. Next. I'm not going to get into that. That's next. Next is just my weird sense of humor. Next. You'll see these pools. I would advise the people to turn off the edge pump that makes the water flow over to make that infinity look. When you're heating the pool for the first time, turn that pump off. This is a cooling tower, what you've made here. So the water flowing over the end, exposed to breeze. Next slide. That's a real problem right there. That was just throwing water out of the pool. Next. That's in Greenwich or Riverside. Next. I'm just gonna. Next. You may see these swim jets. Next. There's a swim jet on the right installed, 4-inch pipe. Next. You can literally swim against them. There's one in a pool, on an indoor pool. You can swim against them. I've done it. They push you back. They're cool. Next.
No, that's inside. So do you need special ventilation for the pool because of the chlorine?
Yes, I'm going to get to that. I don't even think we'll get to that slide. So thank you for asking. We'll just freewheel now and maybe just flip through the slides while we're talking. But yes, an indoor pool. The first thing I'm looking around for is condensation problems in the room. And whether or not the sound system, there it is, whether or not the sound system works. This room had a very good air handling system. It also had an auto cover, so you could put a lid on the pool, and that's the way to do it. Next. Not
Then
code.
that's not legal.
Not code.
Not code.
That's not code either, even though there's two of them. So it's better, but the grate's not code and it's not secured. That's code. So 3 feet. It was 3 feet edge to edge. They just changed it in 2022. You can now go center to center, 3 feet apart or on a different plane. That's definitely bad on the right there. That's what some companies were using as a waterfall pump for the spa. And imagine a hickey if you stuck to that while that thing's running. And the okay, see that where the arrow is pointing to? Do you remember that accident in Greenwich?
Yes.
Little boy stuck his hand in something just like that. I'm going to show you pictures that I shouldn't. And Jim, you probably should destroy this copy. Those are lawyers and Greenwich inspectors. That's the day after that boy drowned in a similar situation. He stuck his hand, the grate had fallen off. He stuck his fist in there. It was a single point of suction, only a 1 horsepower pump. And the physics are wild. 400 to 900 pounds to pull a volleyball that's made of seal on an 8-inch suction cover. Pull it off. And they know that because they use tuna scales to pull it off. There's just an array of different approved grates. That's what I think of the SVRSs, the mechanical ones, because the service guys were getting pissed off at the things tripping, and they would defeat them. They put bubble gum in the vent. Next. That's how you do. If you got a live main drain or you want to make a pool, add a layer of safety, you divide the suction points, and that's how we do it. Next. Next. I'm going to skip it. I'd love to talk.
I think we're good. That's it.
Right now in Connecticut, if the pool was built 2022 after October, you don't need a fence around the pool if you have an auto cover. This is my shocked face too. We fought it. We created a position paper in the association I'm with. We did it in the whole Northeast, and we're anticipating it going back. But New York struck that language, and so did Massachusetts. And I think New Jersey did too. Only Connecticut kept it.
Pool covers fail.
That's right. And that's my argument. They bring their lawyers out. Well, the gates, they need adjusting every spring. I'm like, yeah. And so do the pool covers. So it was silly. It was a silly argument. Next.
We're good. That's
Good.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. This was very informative, and we really appreciate your time. I want to thank you very much.
And I just want to add to that I've worked with Bob and brought Bob out on, a lot of times we do a lot of these houses, they have pools and I don't inspect them. And I recommend Bob, and he is one of the best, or is the best that I worked with him many times. But Bob, what is your area, just real quick? And what is the area that you cover in Connecticut? At least
Thank
Connecticut.
you for asking. Our geofocus is, well, we're out of Wilton. We're up and down the coast as far down as Mamaroneck. We actually have a pool with a floating cover. We have a pool in Bronxville. And we go as far north as North Ridgefield, and we go as far as east as like Fairfield. We're actually a family of companies now. We were bought a few years ago by Mariani, and they want me to teach all their landscape companies how to do pool service. So I'm gonna probably do a dog and pony show and probably actually show them this slide series to just show them some of the things they're gonna need to know.
If we have somebody out of your district, do you have guys that that you could refer that are out maybe northern part?
Give it a shot. And there's a member locator tool on NESPA website that's available. You got to kind of search for it, but it's there, and it shows you everybody within a radius. You can do 5, 10, 25 miles of a site who is licensed and who has the credentials, which tends to mean they know what they're doing.
Okay.
Well, we're going to end the webinar tonight. Again, thank you so